Hello and welcome to another Arkeys video and to a revisit at the Nordschleife circuit experience. Back when the game came out, I did a video about completing the full lap on this one. Since then we've had a lot of physics changes. The physics at the start of the game was really tricky, then they became really easy, and now they've landed somewhere in between. And my original video seems to resurface now and then, getting picked up by the algorithm, and I think it's about time I do a fresh take on this one. And while I'm at it, also try to do this without using the demonstration ghost. So let's get straight into it and have a look at the first sector. And I'm pretty sure the first sector is the one we've all done the most due to all the restarts. But here it's all about really being patient around that first corner. I've been running wide so many times. I'm using third gear for exit. It's like the car is feeling heavier now. You need to lift a bit coming through that right-hander. And here all about braking early so you don't run too wide coming through here, because you need to keep the car to the right so you can get down through this bit. Using a bit of second gear just to make the car hang on to the corner. Also here down to second gear and up to third. Really make sure that the steering wheel is pointing straight before you put on the power, and we are across the line. And this is not an amazing time. P1 just on my friends list is a full second faster than me just in that sector. And we are moving on to the second sector. Now we are coming down this straight full power, and the car goes light just before we have to turn in, making sure to hit that apex and the second one as well. Sometimes if you nail that line, you can get up to sixth gear already at the exit of that corner and get some more speed down this straight. Here you just have to turn in really early. I think I lift just a little bit. No, I'm keeping it flat, but I'm also going a bit on the grass, braking just before the end of the curve on the left, going a bit deep into the corner, but I think we are okay, and get back on the power and across the line once again. Not anything amazing, but we survive it. Now we are about to do one of the tricky sectors in this one. We're coming down the hill and we really gain some speed, but we are coming up towards Adenauer Forst, a place where a lot of cars crash in real life. I'm dropping down one gear, making sure just to make the car coast in, dropping two more gears, and all the way down to a bit of first gear, making sure to keep the car to the left. I'm using a bit too much of the curb. They are really tall here, so you have to be careful, but we are across the line and we move on to the next sector. Here we have to be careful. We've got a bit of a tricky left-hander coming up. I'm using the brighter part of the barrier on the right as a turn-in mark, and a bit of braking as well. And here you have to make sure you don't run in too deep, because that will compromise your exit. And once again, coming downhill, so make sure you brake early enough. A late apex for this one, and here's a sweeping left to right hander, just carry some speed. And this is miss, hit, miss. I also missed the middle apex, but just make sure you don't hit the first apex, because then you will run wide. Braking really early all the way down to first gear. Also a late apex for that one. And we get back on the power, a bit slidey there, but we are across the line and we are ready to move on to the next sector. This time we are coming down the hill. Make sure that we brake early enough. I brake sort of at the end of the curve here. Just let the car roll through the corner up to fourth gear to make sure it doesn't spin down to third. Just let the car coast into the corner so you can get back on the power. And here we have to look out for a small Yokohama sign on the right. There's also a blue patch, but I cannot see it because of the shadows on the track. Yeah, I don't really hit any apex, but the thing is you have to try to hit a late apex, because this is leading on to a very long power bit uphill, so the run out of that corner is crucial. And we are at the end of that very same long power bit, and we are coming up towards the Bravery corner. I'm just dropping down to fifth gear, and I think Now I'm staying in 5th this time. Just make sure I don't run wide, and we are coming up towards this tight corner, braking just before the curb on the left and up to 3rd gear, but still really have to ease on the power. And you can see this car really wants to spin out, and we are almost getting towards the first carousel. And this is a very short sector, only a 12-13 second one. Just making sure I don't get out of that concrete bit and try to get an exit, sort of aiming towards the corner of the concrete and across the line. Not really much about that one. That can be done a lot faster than I did there, but just want to survive that one. Now we've got a really long and rather tricky sector. First we're coming up here, full power, just stay on full power, and then down a gear once I reach that curb, and I'm staying in 4th gear, and here I could carry a lot more speed. I'm missing that apex, so that compromises my exit. Now we're coming down the hill, just make sure that don't carry too much speed, making sure I brake as I turn left, because otherwise you'll just run wide coming down here. Once again, a bit too careful and don't really touch the curb, because that would just upset the car. Now this is YouTube corner. I'm just trying to carry some speed coming down here, and once again up the hill. Just make sure the car doesn't slide. It almost slides for me there, but we are across the line. That was actually both Super GT's and Rory Alexander's favorite sector, that one, and I can see why, but it's a tricky one. Now we just have to keep it tight. You can almost straight line this bit, and now it's full power down this twisty bit, and we've got a nasty jump coming up. Make sure you're ready to brake just before that, and you can turn in just as soon as the car lands, and make sure you can keep on full power. Don't go too far to the left, because the car will take off at that part of the track. Still just full power, and then I'm using this sort of a fence on the left. I use that as a reference, scraping off some speed, and this is also a tricky one. You can easily overcook it, and once you are at the full lap, it's really an annoying place to mess this one up. In fact, all the sectors roughly after the first carousel are really important to practice a lot separately, because that's usually where you are getting scared and nervous when you are on the full lap trying to set a time. Second carousel, just be careful when you get on the power, as the car would like to jump out of that one. And this final corner, make sure you get close to the first apex and then run wide so you can get close to the second apex. And this was definitely not a perfect example of how to do this, but the speed you can carry here is crucial, because this is the long back straight leading up to the final corners, and you really need all the speed you can get. Now we are at the end of the long back straight, and this is where you are usually really nervous when you are on the full lap, because if you've made it all the way to this part, you don't want to mess up the final corners. Keep an eye on the curb on the right. As soon as that ends, get on the power, scrape up some speed. You can use some of the curb, they are not as lethal here. And down to second gear, be careful when you come on the power. And we are across the line of the final sector. And now it's time to do the full lap. You can see my best time so far is a 6:32.9, but that time is from when the physics were at its most easy level. The car had more grip and all that stuff. Now the car feels heavier, it's a bit more slidey, not as tricky as when the game came out, but definitely trickier than it has been earlier. And since this is a full lap, I have to forgive myself for doing some errors along the way. Especially because you cannot just keep restarting, because you will never get a full lap in. But I've given myself a rule that if this first sector, if it's slower than a mid 41, then I'm allowed to restart. So anything above a 41.5 roughly, then I have to do it again, because you can lose so much time. And that my first sector is definitely not perfect, but that was a 41.3, so it's enough to allow myself to carry on. You can probably find out yourself what you find is a reasonable level for you to restart or not. And let's see if I can avoid the grass this time. Just turn in early. I think I'm keeping it flat, a bit on the grass. Can I avoid going too deep? I think that was better than when I did the separate sectors. Almost a bit sketchy on the exit there. Now we're coming up towards the famous crashing point at an hour forced. Let's see if I can just drop down one gear. Yeah, I used to drop down 2 gears, but that slowed me down too much. 1 gear, then 2 gears, then a bit of first gear, up to second, and back up to third on the exit. Still be careful when you roll on the power. Now, once again, keeping an eye out for the brighter part of the barrier on the right. A slight bit of braking, and just let the car coast in and brake early enough because you don't want to run in too deep. It's best to avoid the curbs there. I'm definitely not listening to my own advice, but we are still alive, and at this point of the lap I just carry on. I would only restart if I crash, I have to restart basically, but I'm not too picky at the moment. I can practice each sector when I do the separate practicing. Definitely too close to the inside of that corner. That is going to compromise my exit, but we are still alive. I'm short shifting quite a bit because the car can easily get slidey coming out of that tight corner. Just letting the car roll in, and once again almost just letting the car coast into this corner, and I'm upshifting to fourth this time. You can do both fourth gear and third gear. It depends on what you feel comfortable with. I'm not trying to set an amazing lap, I'm just trying to set some sort of lap. That was definitely a bit too narrow. You need a later apex than that because you need to carry as much speed as possible, because now it's just full throttle. And I think this car, it feels like you don't have to just completely ring out fifth gear. You can get up to sixth gear. Yeah, there we go. It's like the turbo picks up again once you are in the top gear. And yeah, down to fifth gear, up to sixth gear again. I'm a bit braver this time, and definitely carrying more speed this time than I did when I did the separate sectors. And just make sure I brake early enough. Easy on the power. And now we are at the part of the track where I'm really just focused on surviving. Let's get around the carousel. Just make sure I stay within the concrete bit. And now we are back at Super GT and Rory Alexander's favorite sector. Full power, down 1 gear as we reach the curb, and maybe, yeah, now I'm getting a bit more cautious because I don't want to crash now, and maybe too cautious, but I think we are still okay. Making sure I don't carry too much speed, down to 4th gear so I can power out here without running wide. Make sure I don't just go off the track because it's coming over a hill. YouTube corner, just keeping it cool. You can carry a lot of speed coming through there, but you have to be careful you don't run wide here. Once again up the hill, that's where I almost spun out, and I'm almost spinning a bit here again. Now I'm just avoiding the curb almost on the left, and I'm running across on the right. And this is really a brown pants moment down the hill. I definitely lost some time there, but we are still alive. And you can see through the next corners that I'm still a bit scared from that near-death moment there. We are coming down this part, full power, through this twisty bit. You just have to trust that the car will stay with you, looking out for the fence once again, dropping down a couple of gears, and just rolling off some speed, and almost spinning. And then the second carousel, I just want to survive, down to second, up to third, careful on the power. Yeah, you can see the rear wants to step out. Definitely one of my least favorite parts. And now is pure survival mode. just don't want to run wide on the exit of this one. That's the main thing at this point. And you can see on this full lap, once we got to the last sectors, I was getting more and more nervous, and you just want to survive it. And as I mentioned earlier in this video, that's why you want to practice those last sectors, because the first ones you're doing a lot of time because of restarting. Practice the last ones a lot. Now we are coming up towards the final braking zone, keeping an eye out for the curb on the right and braking. Don't want to crash now, so I'm being extra cautious. Don't go too much on the curbs there, and the car's almost spinning, but I managed to shift the weight back to the right, and we are across the line in 6:33.2. I'm close to my original time, and keep in mind that that time was when the physics were a bit more easy, and I also did the lap with a ghost back then. This track is a lifetime learning experience. My time is 10 seconds slower than Luka Savicic, who is #1 on my friends list leaderboard. There's so much time to gain on this, and you just never really get done with learning this one. So it's just a part of the experience always to get back to this one and try to improve bit by bit. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe you even found it somewhat useful. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time. Bye bye.